Uh-huh.
That's right.
Like biscuits.
Straight out of the oven.
Gobble damn cookies up, yo.
Word.
Gotta have them bickies.
Cookie Monster rates us.
Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 1 of Life Biscuits. I am Glen,
I'm Chris.
and we are coming to you with the Life Biscuit on courage. Our very first Life Biscuit after our introduction last week. If you haven't seen episode 0, check it out on the website, lifebiscuits.com.
Yeah, super excited.
Yeah,
We've got 5 main key points that we want to give to you today
Definitely.
about courage.
and I mean, we're basing this one on a quote, and get ready for this one. This is a nice quote by Anais Nin, who...
Not her full name.
No, but life shrinks or expands according to your courage. All right. Now, courage, I think, is something that is easily kind of just passed off and go.
Yeah.
It's just a word that people throw around a fair bit, but perhaps haven't grasped the potential of.
Yeah, there's so much more to it.
Definitely. And I think that's what Life Biscuits is about, right? Is about potential, and we are trying to fulfill our potential, and we want other people to try and fulfill theirs, and hence why we're sharing our Life Biscuits and the 5 points today that we have on courage. Do you want to run us over the 5 points,
So,
Larry?
write them down if you've got a pen and paper. But if you don't, just remember, they all start with C, so it's a useful reminder. A little... an acronym, not an acronym.
No.
You get what I mean. Anyway, courage is a choice. All right, it's a commitment. All right, it's about change, and it's a catalyst. All right, and it's something that we need to cultivate. And we'll talk about those a little bit more detail.
We'll go through each of those steps, and I mean, we don't necessarily have a script on each of those steps, but I think part of the beauty of courage in particular is letting it, under each of those 5 points, letting it speak to the listener and letting our conversation kind of speak to them. And I mean, we might disagree and they might disagree with us, but I think there's universal truth to some of the points that, or at least the headings that we'll be talking about, and people can grasp those and try and dunk them into their own lives with the Life Biscuits dunk, which we'll talk about just before the end.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, so first of all, courage is a choice.
Between fear.
Yeah, I mean, generally fear, right? And that's the common one that people will talk about. They'll say...
in the face of fear, you have the courage to act in this way.
Correct.
Yeah.
Being courageous
Bravery.
isn't about not feeling fear. It's about feeling the fear, but taking the steps forward anyway. And I mean, there's so much truth to that. We want to kind of, I guess, take it a little bit further and say that it's not only fear that you might feel. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit later when we're looking at courage being a catalyst. But, I mean, you've heard the story, right, about the sort of Zen master or guru who talks to his apprentice about there being 2 wolves in his mind, one a wolf of fear and a wolf of courage, and the student says, which one will win the battle? And the master says, whichever one you feed. And that's really, I mean, the essence of courage being a choice, is that we have the choice which one we're going to feed. If we're going to buy into the fear, or are we going to say, no, I realize the fear is there, or the other emotion or anxiety is there, but I'm going to choose to be courageous in the face of that.
Yeah, fear is such a barrier. I mean, like, there's so many instances where the fear just stops you from doing things. Bring it to some Star Wars for you Star Wars nerds. Anakin falls to the dark side because he fears about losing Padme. So he's like, Lord Sidious, I'll do anything. Just show me the way to save. I don't want to lose, like, my wife. And so, he eventually falls and the galaxy is under the rule of the tyrannical Darth Sidious. But anyway, like if I compare it to the prequels, to the original trilogy, like Luke, to be able to save the galaxy, he's got to face his fear. So he's training on Dagobah with Yoda. And there's this cave, and all Jedi are supposed to go through the Jedi trials. And, Luke goes and asks Yoda, what's in the cave? And Yoda says, only what you take with you. And it's really telling, because essentially the Jedi trials is about facing your fear and overcoming it, even in the face. And so Luke goes into this cave, and he sees Darth Vader, and they duel it out. And, Luke eventually, after harnessing the dark side but not succumbing to it, defeats Vader, and he finds out that Vader's mask cracks open and he sees himself in there, and realizing that the danger of everything was just himself. It was the fear that he brought into it. So it's so, like, with the story about the wolves, it's so important that we don't let fear control our lives and go, I'm scared of this, or this is uncomfortable, I'm not going to do it. Because, you have this one life, and if you're going to choose to let fear rule it, all right, it's not much life worth living left, is there?
Exactly. I didn't really understand much of what you said in terms of the Star Wars speak, because I'm not, unlike you, I'm not a Star Wars person. I might like to be one day, though, Larry. So,
oh man, the Jedi teachings.
You'll have to. We'll have to have a Star Wars marathon of sorts, and you can keep me posted on. One
more Yoda quote: "Fear leads to the dark side. Fear leads to anger, and anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering."
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
cool.
Something we can explore further in some future podcasts. So it's quite an interesting ideology.
Good one, Yoda. Yeah, I like it. So, I mean, you had me thinking there for a second when you were talking, and I guess this is what we'll do is, thoughts just going to pop into our heads a little bit, but a lot of our fears, I think, or for me anyway, is other people's perceptions. I found it a really difficult transition over the last quite a number of years since having children. Pre-kids at work, Haley and I would get there early, work until we just had everything completely done, go home pretty much. And now I can't do that. I've made a commitment to making sure I'm as present as possible with my family, but the fear of other people's perceptions of when I get to work later than I would like to, or leave earlier than I would like to, so that I can pick up kids or get home to play with the kids and whatnot, that still controls me a lot. Not so much controls my actions, because I've committed to making sure that I will be available to be there if I have to. And if that means I need to stay up later and do some work that I wasn't able to do, then that's what happens. But that fear of other people think I'm slacking because they don't see the work I do behind the scenes or whatever, definitely has a big bearing on my just general well-being, I think. And it will take, I think, ongoing courage, and this kind of leads to the next point of commitment, ongoing courage to say that I'm not going to buy into those.
Yeah, you're not going to live into, according to those people's standards who don't know everything. Exactly.
And not only that, but this is a story I'm telling myself.
Yeah.
I don't know this, but it's a story that I'm telling myself, which I think is another principle that we'll kind of talk about a lot, is this concept of self-limiting beliefs and buying into these stories that we think other people think about us, which is something that is pretty huge sort of rate limiter on people's lives and fulfilling the potential. One last point on courage is a choice. We can make the choice, but not win.
Yeah.
There's this, again, another story that we tell ourselves that, well, if I can go and be courageous here and face my fears, then I'm going to come out the victor.
It doesn't always work that way.
No, exactly. And I learned that the hard way, even earlier this year. I'd faced up to a fear, and I'm like, boom, the fear's here. This is the story that I'm telling myself of how it's all going to go badly and whatnot. But I'm like, nah, the right thing to do is to be courageous and take the step and make the choice. So I did it. Backfire, right? Damn, backfire. And so it blew up on me. But despite that, and this is my takeaway from it, even though I didn't win, so to speak, the battle, I wouldn't change it. I'm glad I was courageous. I practiced that, strengthening that courage muscle, I guess, and I was able to look back on it and now add that experience to my repertoire of saying, hey, I have exhibited courage and I'm still alive and I'm glad I did it. So that was kind of like a proof point for me. So I'm glad I did that.
Yeah, win or learn. Ain't no losers here, baby.
Yeah, for sure. Win or learn, I like that.
Yeah, so number 1, courage is a choice.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, we'll move on to commitment. Hey, so courage is a commitment, and it's like we talked about, something that you need to do repetitively and every single day and be really conscious about it.
Yeah, there's another C. It wasn't one of our 5. Courage, you need to be conscious of it. And I guess that comes to choice, but yeah, that daily concept.
And we talked about, Glenbo's got this no chocolate in 2020 deal at the moment, and he's going strong. It's July, and he hasn't touched chocolate at all. So
correct. Like I touch it at the shop to bring it home for other members of the family.
What's that quote? As I walk through the valley of death. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, no, but it hasn't even tempted me all that much, which I guess it's never been a super weakness of mine, a sweet tooth. Like if I was saying no lasagna in 2020, even though I don't actually eat lasagna pretty much ever, but I mean, I do enjoy it. But if I was to say no butter chicken from Everest Spice in 2020, damn son, that'd hurt.
That's a big call.
Because I do love their butter chicken. It's probably my favourite.
Everest Spice, looking for sponsorship deals if you want us.
Yeah, but anyway, daily practice for sure. We mentioned it in the last one. It's a muscle, we use the analogy of it being a courage muscle that needs to be, if I was to do work on my physical skeletal muscles, they would get bigger and stronger. And again, if I do use courage repetitively, I commit to use it daily or as often as possible, then I'm going to become more courageous. Yeah. So it's pretty self-fulfilling if we are able to go out and sort of commit to getting after it. Yeah.
I want to segue to relationships because commitment, is kind of a big deal with relationships. I was listening to ABC radio on the drive back from my hike, and they were talking about Mental Health Week and well-being and how couples, there's relationships stop working and they break down because of emotional distance. And when you're suffering from mental health and whatnot, that emotional distance can seem to get further and further apart. And it's about commitment to going and being vulnerable and just practicing daily. They were talking about you should have a kiss or a hug that lasts for more than 6 seconds. Maybe that might lead on to something more, and then like a debrief in the morning.
What else might it lead?
I don't know. Another C word, copulation. Were you thinking about some other words?
I was thinking some other words, but
okay, we won't talk about those. No. But yeah, they were talking about a 6-second, embrace, and then in the morning, just to breach that emotional distance, just being open and saying, hey, these are some things that like my day has got going.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, at dinner, a bit of a debrief. Hey, how'd your day go? And just really bring that emotional distance a little bit closer. And we talk about courage and commitment. It takes, like, if you're trying to be courageous and following these life biscuits to improve your family and your relationships and all the people in them, then it really is about, practicing that daily commitment of being open and vulnerable and just closing that emotional gap distance.
Yeah. When we talk about life biscuit number 5, which is about people, we'll really look at, relationships are fundamental to every single person, right? Because everyone has relationships, and then if you link that as you have to courage and a commitment to being courageous in relationships, like if there's one thing that's going to make your relationships more successful, for want of a better word, it would be some form of, I think, combination of being courageous, as well as, and I guess it still links to courage, is, and we'll talk about change next, being courageous enough to change yourself. And I mean, again, this is Life Biscuits 101. We're about changing ourselves, and we'll talk about people who don't want to do that at some point, but seeing things from that other person's perspective, which I think is so hard. We're so used to seeing things from our own perspective and wanting our own way and wanting other people to see it our way and understand us, but it takes a whole lot of courage to try, and I don't think we can ever fully understand people, because we aren't them. But it does take courage to say, you know what, I'm going to put myself in your shoes as best as I can and try and understand you and hear you, and I think that will, when people do commit to relationships, then they're willing to do that. And obviously we see a lot of relationship breakdown in society in general, and whether or not it has to do with
commitment and courage,
and people not willing to compromise on, I'm not changing myself, when two people come with that perspective, I guess it's always going to be difficult. And I mean, you're always going to have instances where people, it's just not going to happen or whatever, but and there's been trauma that's so significant that things can't be repaired, and that's completely unfortunate, I guess. But digressing again, I guess, which is always, again, going to happen. But it did lead us on to our third point. I'll segue through to point number 3, which is courage is about change. Yeah.
So if we want to change, and if we want to see any big growth with whoever or whatever aspect of our life, it needs to come with us and start with us. All right? Like, it just begins. Life begins at the edge of your comfort zone, and we'll go back to fear the choice. Like, if you live at that edge of your comfort zone, all right, and you force that decision between fear and courage, then things are going to start changing for you. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, we see it every day at work we're teachers, and with kids that we coach in sport and that sort of thing, saying these are some things how you can step out of your comfort zone in today's lesson. Like, you can step out of your comfort zone by doing this, going and encouraging someone else, or smiling at someone else, when they might not be your bestie or whatever it is. And kids who have the capacity to do that, like, they go on and they keep doing it because they reap those rewards that they've sown into. And we'll talk about cultivating courage in point number 5. But I mean, they've seen the fruits of getting outside their comfort zone and being willing to change, and then you just see them go on from one step to the next about growing and expanding and furthering their potential, which is
really
awesome.
Exponential, isn't it? Like, just taking that first step and reaping those, like, just compound, or another C word, compounding benefits.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. This is when we talk about change, often, there's, if you look at the Johari window, I don't know if you've done many Johari window exercises, but, there are things that we know about ourselves and that others know about us. There are things that we know about ourselves that other people don't know about us. There are things that other people know about us that we don't know, our blind spots. Yeah. And there are things that then nobody knows, right? That are actually part of me, but I don't even know about them, because they're just subconscious, hidden, like they've been pushed down, and other people obviously don't know them either. And those blind spots, I think, are such a growth opportunity for us if we're willing to have the courage to find out what they are. And a lot of us aren't. There would be people in my world talking about me, and I don't know the things that they're saying, and what they are saying is a growth opportunity for me.
Yeah, exactly.
But I, at this point, I'm not finding out about them.
And I think it's such a good, like, for me personally, I would love to hear and have that opportunity to be able to change and then grow from those opportunities.
Definitely.
And it's about having that courage to be able to go, hey, give me some feedback.
Definitely.
On whatever it is that, what we're doing.
And being courageous enough to say, one, ask for the feedback. I want you to give me some honest feedback, right? But then being courageous enough to hear the feedback and accept it without
getting defensive.
Not only that, but even holding any resentment that you don't necessarily verbalize. But if I was to ask you, like, hit me with the truth, Larry, like, what is it that you or what is it that other people are saying about me when I'm not around? And I want to hear it because I want to grow. That's my biggest growth potential sort of area there. But I've got to be, in a space to receive that and go, cool, thank you. I'd love you to work with me to, help grow that and ask for feedback on how I'm doing. And having that sort of accountability, which we'll talk about again in point number 5 when we're talking about cultivation. So that's courage is about change.
Courage is change.
And Life Biscuits is about change. Every Life Biscuit, we're asking ourselves, you and me, we're asking ourselves this as well as everyone else, to consider some changes and applying some of these things in our life, which does take courage and wants us to change in some way, because the only way we're going to get better is to change. And if we will change, everything will change for us. Yeah. All right, number 4.
Change is a catalyst.
Oh boy. So some people will say that courage is the foundation, right, of all other sort of virtues and practices, habits, good things, a foundation for all of the other Life Biscuits, which is why it's number 1.
Yeah. Because without it, nothing works.
Exactly. Now, you're a scientist, so being a science teacher, of which I am as well, but haven't taught it in a while. So let's throw it over to you to just give our listeners, those unscientific people, or the people who haven't listened in science class, or have forgotten, like myself.
Grade 8, 9, 10 science, depending on what unit you're doing, in the Australian curriculum, essentially catalyst. Put my glasses on. A catalyst is anything that speeds up a reaction without being used. So it really lulls the activation energy for this reaction to occur. And essentially, if I bring this into terms of courage, if we have the courage and this activation energy is lowered, the input of, whatever time resources, mental resources, then this I won't say exponential because I need to be scientifically correct because we're in science at the moment. Science 101. But the reaction is sped up. So in terms of some reactions can't spontaneously happen, but with the catalyst present, then this reaction just goes bonkers. Cool. And this is essentially what courage is for us. It's a catalyst for everything that we do. It under foundation for every one of our biscuits coming after this one.
Cool. So like an example we just used, would I be right in saying that, courage was the catalyst for me to find out my weakness? And then now that I know it, or my blind spot, now that I know it, I'm able to, and without that courage, I would have just chipped away at perhaps finding out this. Yeah, the
reaction itself takes a lot more energy, and that energy might not be present. So without that little Kickstarter, this reaction, our growth, Life Biscuits, it's not going to take off. So courage, catalyst.
Definitely. Yeah, courage is a catalyst. And I mean, I don't think you mentioned the word compound before as well, which I think is another great C word that comes along with this and kind of speaks to me as well when we're talking about courage being a catalyst. And courage is also going to compound positively everything that we do, or every little investment that we make. Again, we're going to commit to it. It's a choice that we're making daily, and therefore we're going to get better and better at it. Yeah. And so it's going to, it being a catalyst and it being a Kickstarter for change is really going to just keep compounding, and our bubble that we live in is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And if we've cast our dream out far, we want to try and fill out towards that dream and
reach that potential.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Reach our potential. Life Biscuits 101. So, I mean, I really like that concept of courage being a catalyst. And if we can remind ourselves that we need to be courageous every day, then we're obviously going to get better and better at it, and that compound effect is also going to happen. So it's a kind of a double whammy there. So that brings us to point number 5, which is courage needs to be cultivated. Cultivate means to prepare land, all right, for sowing. And in this case, we're trying to sow courage, right? So if we're trying to sow courage, we need to prepare ourselves. You know, courage is going to happen daily. We want it to happen daily, a daily choice, a commitment to happen every day. So how can we prepare our day for courage opportunities? And I think the way to do that is to spend time in the morning. And I mean, we're going to talk about morning routines and evening routines and whatnot throughout Life Biscuits. And as part of our morning routines, which again we'll get into, but you know, using some of that foresight, and we often can't use foresight unless we practice hindsight and that reflection stuff. So this will become a habit that we form. But what interactions am I going to have today, looking forward, whether it's at work or at home or, you know, even at the shop or whatever it might be, where I can take an opportunity to perhaps step out of my comfort zone, do something that I'm not used to, experience something that might grow me if I take that opportunity. I won't be able to do that if I don't see it coming, if I haven't actually tried to prepare the day for that opportunity. So I might walk out of the shops and go, I probably could have stepped out of my comfort zone there when talking with the checkout person about really trying to encourage them for their day, as an example. Another one might just be a situation that you've got. What circumstances might I experience today where I can choose the path of most resistance? I can experience discomfort rather than just staying in my little bubble. How can I stretch myself and grow myself today? And if we cultivate our days, prepare them for these opportunities, I think then we're going to be able to practice our courage a lot more in being courageous. So those are a couple of points that I think, you know, when I get to dunking the biscuit later, I'll be encouraging people to try and do that.
Yeah, I think it's also really important that, you know, we talk about preparing and planning for preparation and cultivate those opportunities. But it's also really important to cultivate your mindset in regards to being able to approach those, you know, situations where you can, you know, implement some courage. Like self-talk is so important. Being in the right mindset to be able to start, you know, approaching them. Like they say, I don't know, can't remember where this quote's come from, but it's been repurposed many a time. But the most important conversation is the conversation you have with yourself. And we have those conversations, you know, daily, thousands of times. And, you know, if we can start cultivating the right mind frame and the right mindset to be able to, you know, display that courage and just really attack, but engage those opportunities to seek that discomfort, then we're going to reap those rewards from that cultivation. And another thing about self-talk is that we really need to limit the negativity and the toxicity of some of those self-limiting thoughts.
Absolutely.
It's, you know, it's such a, it can just ruin essentially like the courage, any courage you have.
Who's your self-talk guy?
I'd say probably Mr. T from the A-Team. I don't know why I gravitate towards African-American men that are quite muscly, but I just feel like he's just...
he's your guy.
He's my guy, man. Or Terry Crews from Everybody Hates Chris. Julius.
Does Terry Crews play the dad?
Yeah, he does. So yeah, those are guys that just like my inner PT or my just like dude that just like, hey man, that was a cheap meal you shouldn't have had. So yeah. Who's your dude?
I don't know who my dude is. I know that he speaks a lot. Like, I think it's just me, really. But it's definitely like even my negative. And I think I'm an outlier here. I don't think it's quite necessarily the norm. But even my negative self-talk, which can be pretty harsh, I really receive as kind of positive.
Yeah.
And it is that
Just the
motivational
mind frame
type
mindset,
kind of thing. But I think in society in general, it's probably the flip of that. I think there's a lot of self-talk going on. I think a lot of people don't actually realize they're doing it.
Yeah.
They don't realize the impact it's having. And finally, I think it's overwhelmingly negative and people believe it.
Yeah, that needs to change. Hey, we need to just start being kinder to ourselves and just really encourage and develop that courage to be able to face those opportunities where we can grow.
For sure. And recognizing when it's harmful. Because I think people buy into and believe that conversation they have with themselves. And often it's not good.
Yeah. So yeah, self-talk, limiting those negativity, those toxic thoughts, and then just being accountable, like developing a sense of accountability from, those courage opportunities. So, if I make a commitment and I write it down and then I make it public, it's such a strong, will of commitment. And if we can just, let people know that, hey, I'm not having chocolate in 2020, or I'm gonna give up alcohol in July, dry July, or whatever it is that you're doing, then people can hold you accountable, and you can go, hey, I've made this commitment. I've got to take that courage and just go, I've said I'm going to do this. Absolute integrity. I've got to hold myself to it.
Biscuit 13.
Biscuit 13. Oof.
Because if you don't, it'd be so easy, especially with that little voice saying, "Oh, no." If I hadn't kind of made public the chocolate thing, it would be so much more difficult.
Yeah, and your brain just makes these little weaving
loopholes.
thoughts. Yeah, like loopholes. Like, oh, white chocolate. Technically doesn't have any cacao. I mean, chocolate in it.
I'll use this as a loophole.
Chocolate flavored stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So
although I've done well with the chocolate thing and I haven't bought into any of those loopholes, there are other areas that I definitely buy. I'm like, oh yeah, I deserve a curry tonight.
Tell me about it.
After a tough day and it's late, man. And it's funny because I'll be loving it on the way there. I'll be having it in the car on the way back. I'm eating it and I'm loving it. And then after I'm like,
why did I do this to myself?
Why?
Yeah. Full disclosure, Glen, though, I failed today. I went and had a Macca's meal, had a McFeast meal with a large fries and a small Sprite. And my thoughts were like, I woke up at 5:30, went for a 2K swim, and then I went to work, did some work at school, and then I gave blood. And then I was like, hungry. I'm gonna replace 900 milliliters of blood, man. Put some fast food in me. I earned this. And so, I 100% agree. It's so easy for those limiting or just weaseling thoughts just to break it down.
And I guess we've got to find a balance there between being so hard that, I can never have Macca's, I can never have anything that's not great for me or that's not going to make the boat go faster, which you'll find out what that means in future episodes. But essentially allowing yourself some opportunity for, one, self-compassion, and two, letting go a little bit, right? Treat yourself.
I did earn that Macca's meal. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not. If you went for another 2K swim tomorrow, which no doubt you might, but and then go, I deserve McDonald's.
It's just a perpetuating cycle.
Sure, and I guess you being you will know.
Yeah.
But other people might not, and so that's where accountability can come in and really be your best friend. So if you want me to hold you accountable to that, you let me know. We should do that more.
So those are our 5 points. I'll just recap them. Courage is a choice. All right, courage is a choice. We need to actively choose between courage and fear. It's like the story about the wolves. It's about
and also courage and the easy way out. It might not be like, it's not fear, so it's not. Well, are you taking a shortcut? And often we look for shortcuts, don't we? But sometimes it's a choice to make the hard part.
I'm beating myself up about it now. Positive self-talk, Lowy.
That's it. Stop it.
Number 2, courage is a commitment. All right? We've got to commit to, doing it every single day. And we talked about relationships. It's so important. Number 3, courage is
About
change. Yeah, if we were willing to change, then the world is going to change for us.
Definitely. And I think if there's one thing you're going to take from this episode, which I realise has been a pretty lengthy one, but an important one, I think, is don't be the person who's like, no one's going to change me, accept me as I am. Like
Marilyn Monroe quote. Oof.
You need to change yourself if you want anything to really start swinging in your direction.
Number 4, courage is a catalyst. Like it's a cornerstone for every one of our life biscuits. It's such an important thing. It's the kicking off point, the catalyst point, the activation energy.
Yep.
So it's
going to compound things as well, and things are. If we're practicing it and committing it to it and cultivating it, it's going to be a big foundation for a pretty tall tower.
And then number 5, courage needs to be cultivated. And we've talked about self-talk,
planning your opportunities and preparing the days and preparing your chances and being accountable and getting around other people to help it. Yeah.
So the dunk.
Yeah.
If we can leave you with anything, it would be to go seek some discomfort. Go find something that you find uncomfortable, but it's good for you. That's going to help you grow in whatever area that you're wanting to grow, whether it's going for a run or making a commitment saying, hey, I'm going to give up fast food, or I'm going to give up meat or alcohol for whatever period of time. Go do it. Go find that discomfort and push yourself to change, to commit, to have that catalyst to grow.
Mine's the same in terms of seeking the discomfort, but it's to do with people. Yep. So putting a relational aspect on it, going and finding someone else to try and encourage and getting out of your comfort zone to really get around them and encourage them on to bigger and better things. So stepping out there and putting yourself on the line and trying to make people say, wow, what happened to Glen? Though he really came and I just had a great time with him today and he just really encouraged me. And I think if we can do that, that's a step in the right direction as well.
So we'd love to hear your stories and your experiences. So, share with them in our social media, our website, lifebickies.com.
Yep. If you go to lifebiscuits.com, you'll see, all of the links to our social media there. But otherwise, just type in Life Biscuits on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and no doubt you'll see Duncan there, Duncan Biscuit, our logo, and follow us, give us a like, give us a review, send us an email at lifebickies@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you. And
we'll look forward to seeing you in episode 2.
Episode 2, to cultivate our whole selves.
See you later.
Time to go. So delicious. I'm feeling full. Yum yum in my tum tum. Gotta digest them bickies.